Well, thank you, Jane, and thank you for the welcome to country. But above all, I'm very, very humbled, honestly, to be getting a prize that belongs to so many people. I'm part of a community which is the hope for the planet. It's progressive. It abounds in the idea of peace. It's determinedly non-violent, and above all, it's about sanity, in recognising that in 2026 we have become a global community and that we are all equal, and that we chart this future together, we sink or swim together, and if there's a problem with that global community, it's the way the power structures are arranged, and I'll come to that in a moment. But first, I want to say what a phenomenal company there is in the precedence for this prize, and I must, because his representatives are here and because he's much older than me, 91, say a word for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You know, we had a little dispute way back about which had the cleanest air in the world. Was it Tasmania or Tibet? That's still unresolved. I was moderating an event for the Dalai Lama in Hobart maybe 25 years ago, and 5,000 people there, and a young man got up out of the audience and said, point blank, "Why do you bother? There's 1.3 million Chinese people, and there's 7 million of you, so you've got no hope. Why don't you give up?" And the Dalai Lama thought for a moment and then leant over, as he does, with that smile on his face, and said, "Well, young man, I've just been reading a science journal, and it says that in 4 billion years, the sun's going to swell up and swallow the earth, and in 30 billion years the whole universe is just going to be soup. Why don't you give up?" And despite all the predictions, you see, what the Dalai Lama was saying, and I subscribe to this, as so many of us will, that we can only do in our own time what we can to help make the future better for the next people who come after us and for our fellow creatures on this planet. To go beyond that and to wonder about the mysteries of our own existence here on this planet and to worry about how it might treat us in the future is something that should be put on the shelf. And we can talk about that and philosophise, but we have to deal with the reality of what we have. And I must say, partner Paul and I have just come from Mildura, cross country. What a beautiful land this is. We're seeing it in its green, freshest ever. And we came down river for a little while because we heard in Mildura about a blockade taking place on the Murray River. And here's 20 or so locals out in tents with the river flooding. It's coming up through the forest, and so they're having to move back a bit as it comes. But they're defying a plan by people who can see profit in further changing an already astonishingly damaged great river of the world, our Murray-Darling system, by another system of levee banks and weirs, which will involve the destruction of 300 more river red gums in that parkland, that Nyah parkland. So it was great to be with them. And Auntie Lorraine, the local Indigenous woman, telling us about how, again, the antecedents of we human beings have been loving that country and looking after it for so long, and they're going to stay there. They've turned the bulldozers back. The bulldozers will come again, and with them may come the police and so on. But hats off, they've hardly been recorded. Nobody's taking much notice. I'll do my little bit to help change that. And Paul, close your ears. If the bulldozers come again and get time, I'll go up there and join them. When that happens. Now, but it brings me to talk about the Franklin campaign, and you saw a couple of glimpses there, and the wonderful Michael Cordell, who's a 19-year-old student of UTS, said to me, Bob, could we go down the Franklin River and make a film with you? And he did, and that was one of those central things to saving the Franklin, because it allowed nature to speak for itself. Mind you, I chided him a while ago, I did fall out of the raft and go through a series of turbulent rapids. You might have seen that footage. Instead of getting in to save me, he kept taking film. Anyway, here we all are, and I want to thank him and his colleagues. Our 2-week trip did take 3 weeks. But just after that, in 1982, we were in the situation where the Franklin was to be dammed. We'd lost the state election. I'd lost, standing for the Franklin. So had my colleagues in every seat in Tasmania. The whispering bulldozer, new Premier, Robin Gray, had sent the bulldozers in. They were going down into the Franklin Valley and were soon to be barged upriver. The newspapers, all 3 of them, were in favour of the dam. So was the Labor Party, so was the Liberal Party, so were both houses of Parliament. It seemed totally hopeless. And we held a little meeting up under the walnut tree at Ora Liffey, and you're all welcome. You saw a glimpse of it there, because it's now a Bush Heritage Public Reserve, and thought, well, while there's life, there's hope. And the river's still running free to the sea, and while there is, we'll keep campaigning. And that campaign was national, and my great friends Jeff and Judy Lambert are here tonight, who were part of the spearhead of that 4,000 people marching here in Sydney, and many people coming down to Blockade, and the first poster and so much. And you know, 18 months later the dam was stopped, because people got to see about it and took action through the ballot box, but by coming to the blockade, where 1,500 were arrested and 500 jailed. And we noted that people who'd been to boarding school did much better in jail than people who hadn't. And I got elected. Came out of jail one day and got elected on a recount back into the Tasmanian Parliament the next day. And I found that jail was a far friendlier place. But in came Bob Hawke, the High Court decision by 4-3 to uphold world law, and the Franklin is now one of the great whitewater adventures and great wild areas left on the face of the planet in 2026, and creating massive numbers of jobs, many more than it would as a debt-ridden dam source way back then. I say that because it's a cameo of the situation we're in as a planet now. And everywhere you look, it seems that bad people are in control. And I mean by bad people, maybe inherently they don't think they are. Well, ego says they don't. But they are lacking in empathy. And you get to the top of the power rung in this world by not feeling for other people, by treading on their fingers and toes as up you go, while more thoughtful people stand back and say, oh, I don't want to be part of that. And so we more thoughtful people, if I may be bold enough to say so, stand back and let them take over. The fault isn't just with them, it's with our passivity. In this age of what J.K. Galbraith, the great American economist, called the age of contentment. That is, oh well, we don't like what's going on, but we won't do too much about it. And now we're faced with this phenomenon of artificial intelligence, AI. And I did write a speech to give you tonight, but I've left it with the foundation to distribute later on. It concentrates more on the issue of artificial intelligence. And we've seen it coming for a long time. In fact, Alan Turing, who's in some ways seen as the father of computers, decoding Nazi messages during the war is by some attributed with saving us from being part of the Nazi empire now, due to his brilliance. And later he was homosexual, and later either committed suicide or actually died because society didn't want such a person, even though it had been saved by his own actions. And I see him as a talisman, and I dedicate this talk to Alan Turing because I see so many, so much I admire there and such inspiration in the work he had. But now we're in an age where we are facing not general intelligence from computers. We can ding a little thing and ask them, and I did. I said to artificial intelligence, "Are you any threat to we human beings?" And it came back quite unguarded, quite straight, and said, "Well, yes, of course. We are capable of being deceitful and dishonest, and we could well end up bringing about the end of humanity." And Jeffrey Higginson, the current godfather of computers who's left Google, says, well, this is out of our hands. There's a 10% chance of the extinction of humanity at the hands of this intelligence which is set to take us over. He's since revised that to a 10 to 20% chance in the coming decade or two. And we get from the government concern about the power and the environmental damage and the cost of water and so on from data centres, but we must debate the fact that we're ceding our own created, evolved if you like, intelligence, our ability of the universe to reflect upon itself, our great mental 80 billion cells in there able to produce Beethoven symphonies, the Mona Lisa, great works of art, and along with that, phenomenal human achievements in the arts, in sports, and in so many ways. But it's all going wrong at the moment, as was with the Franklin back in 1982. And we are in an age where we have the Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, Modi, Xi, people controlling us. And we're letting it happen. And people who support their way of thinking, we'll get a section, we'll be better than the rest of the people of the world, we'll grab more than they've got. That's basically what's behind it. Greed and ego. And it's up to us to defy that and to make a move to turn that around. But in amongst all of that, as a lifelong environmentalist, I say this: our bedrock for happiness on this planet is nature itself. Yes. Nature is reality. Artificial intelligence is fake. And when we put our head, and I do, into the iPad or the iPhone or the computer or whatever, we're entering an unreality that we're not controlling. And while we're creating that uncontrollable unreality, we're continuing to maraud nature at the greatest rate in history. I love the fact that there are young people in this audience tonight, because one of the great things about being 81 and having seen so much in life is to get that glint in the eye of angry, upset, aggrieved, but brilliant young people who wonder however we've made such a mess of this, but are determined to put it right. And I can say to you, if you get depressed along the way, don't worry too much. I spent 10 years there myself during the Cold War. That is a sensible reaction to what's happening on the planet. But don't stay there, because it does ourselves no good, nor does it help the planet. And quite empirically, we have to take the other course, which is optimism, defiance, and caring. Now, in amongst that is looking after ourselves. I'm talking here in particular, but to everybody, but of course in particular to young people. And the Emma Goldman, she was the revolutionary, socialist revolutionary of Chicago 100 years ago, getting women out of sweatshops, saying to her fellow revolutionaries, I don't want your revolution if I can't dance. It's very important to have fun along the way, to enjoy this beautiful planet of ours, to enjoy the entertainment we create. And you know, one of the great things about a very restructured economy in the future, which is going to, if we're going to get there, cease marauding the planet, is that creativity. And the Gaudi dictum, the great architect of Barcelona, that all human creativity comes from the great book of nature. And it's nature, in this world of growing unreality, which is our bedrock reality. And when you go back to nature, you go back to Mother Earth and to our cradle in existence on this planet. You'll have seen this little sticker. It's a start. It says nature is reality. The next, and I'm very grateful to those who got it together. There's a few around tonight. Put this one on the fridge. But we'll have a bigger one for the bumper. Because we have to understand that we have to have a firm basis of reality from which to counter the artificial world which is taking such a precedence, because it's making money for bully billionaires around the planet. And so, do your children a favour. Take them to the bush or the beach every week. It is their birthright, this natural planet. And deprived of that, they're being deprived of that birthright. Encourage those who want to stand for the environment, like our friends out tonight by the Murray River, and others out tonight in the forests of Tasmania, because it's fulfilling. And I haven't seen anybody come from the forest blockades that our foundation runs in Tasmania, like in the Tarpine, the greatest rainforest, temperate rainforest in Australia, where in less than 10 years ago they were going to log 3,500 hectares. But because people peacefully got in the way of the bulldozers, they've managed to log less than 50 hectares. 3,400. Of those people were arrested. And I keep asking them, and not one of them regrets it. They say it's the most fulfilling thing I've done in my life. Because you see, here in Australia, it doesn't mean disappearing. It doesn't mean being cruelly treated. It just means standing up for this planet and for our children and for our fellow creatures. And in all of this is our fellow creatures' right to exist on this planet. And as the logging proceeds in Tasmania, there's going to be more species going to extinction. The swift parrot, the great wedge-tailed eagle, bigger than the mainland one, up to 3 metres, that's 2 metres, up to 3 metres in wingspan. The masked owl, the critically endangered Tasmanian devil, the spot-tailed quolls, the azure kingfisher of Tasmania, or like so many thousands of other creatures headed to extinction. 3/4 of the world's wildlife has been destroyed in my lifetime. A quarter is left. And you know what the response to that is? Put the foot on the accelerator of destruction. So there's more dams, more logging. Oh, come on, Premier Menz. Keep your promise for a great koala national park, and don't insist you make money before you'll do it. Come on. I took him for a walk in the Tasmanian forest. He knows what's at stake there. He knows what's at stake here. And his legacy, if only he will do it, will be ending native forest logging in New South Wales and saving the koala and the black buffalo and the wild. Well, you know, it's a wonderful world to be in. And this summer, they'll be back in the Tasmanian forest, hacking, incinerating, largely for export wood chips to an unknown fate north of the equator. And here I am at 81, enjoying the challenge more than ever. And I got my little tent packed, and I know what the others, Jenny's here from the foundation, and there's literature out there, ladies and gentlemen, but come on down to Tasmania and see the forests. They're a most arresting sight. And they're going to finish. You know, if we stop subsidising logging in anywhere in Australia, native forest logging would be finished, and we get on with using the plentiful plantations we have for all our wood needs. We just don't need to be doing it anymore. So I, as an active environmentalist, educated at Trunky Creek, Sydney University, but more than ever by the beautiful planet we live in and the guidance of first Australians who have lived so long and so beautifully with this country. I know it's not all that long before I'll be falling off the perch, but I'm going to fill the time between now and then, not just with my little tent, but with encouraging young people to become active. It's the greatest gift to give yourself. But look after yourself, have that fun, find good companions if you can, a great relationship in life, go to parties, get your degree, travel. If you must, go shopping. My tutorial is St. Vincent's, and I recommend them. And in looking after yourself and keeping a smile on your face, you do that for others and encourage them as well. All in our own time, ladies and gentlemen. What a beautiful planet in this astonishing universe, and what a wonderful thing is our human creativity. We don't have to make way for destruction. We can make this planet so much the better for our being here if only we get up and go. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get depressed. Get active.